What is up, legends? Nick here, and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be breaking down and examining the incredible power of the DCEU Superman. This is the most divisive version of Superman we've ever had. New 52 Superman might be in that race, but I'm going to give it to Henry Cavill's Superman here. The ultimate power of this character often comes into question, and I've spoken with people who think he could demolish the MCU Thanos with a complete Infinity Gauntlet, and others who think he would get bodied by Batman. Wait. Well, you know what I mean. Just as we do with all of these videos, we're going to take a look at his strength, durability, speed, and his Kryptonian abilities, and any sources and calculations we used will be linked in the description below. With all of that being said, let's get into it. Kal-El was the first naturally born Kryptonian in thousands of years, so while he wasn't specifically bred to be a badass, he definitely turned out to be one. One of the reasons that Kal was such an interesting character is because he was given the freedom that other Kryptonians could never experience. He wasn't bred to carry out any specific task. He was a blank slate that could become anything that he wanted to be. Being born on Krypton didn't inherently grant him any superpowers, but by spending years bathing in the yellow rays of Earth's sun, Kal's powers grew exponentially. Even as a child, Kal was extremely powerful, but his main downfall throughout Man of Steel is that he was forced to hide his powers his entire life. He was never able to truly flex on everybody, to get a sense of his strength. He was, however, able to push an entire school bus out of a river when the bus driver pulled an Automan and ran it off a local bridge. This is amplified by the fact that the bus was nearly completely underwater, so not only did he have to push the bus out of the water, but also all of the children and the entire volume of water inside of the bus. In terms of strength, he's able to crush a solid steel pole as a child while being confronted by bullies. Honestly, he could have turned them into literal jelly with one punch, so maybe his real strength is his restraint. However, as Clark grows older, he doesn't just gain a borderline irresponsible amount of chest hair, his strength and abilities also start to manifest and grow. While spending his time as John Q. Everyman, the oil rig worker, we see a scene where an explosion breaks out. Clark crumples a door on this oil rig like it is a piece of paper, while he's engulfed in flames. Not only is Clark unaffected, but his chest hair seems to grow even stronger after surviving the fire. As the rig burns, it starts to lose its ability to stay upright and ultimately starts to fall. Clark is able to hold the entire oil rig up long enough for everybody to evacuate. Now some more of the good parts. Once the remaining Kryptonians arrive from the Phantom Zone, we really start getting a sense of just how powerful these beings are. Superman learns about his Kryptonian heritage and subsequently his ability to become more powerful the more yellow sun he soaks up. He's able to beat two other minor Kryptonian warriors, Namek and Feora, as well as the end-all, be-all badass of Krypton, the greatest bowl cut in the galaxy, General Zod. As we alluded to earlier, General Zod was bred specifically for battle and leadership, as were these other Kryptonians, so no doubt he is the best genetics that Kryptonian could artificially engineer. Superman was not only able to match Zod's strength, but actually overpower him. We see these two Kryptonians smash through office buildings made of steel, concrete, and glass like they are nothing. All of this is just Superman in his infancy stage as well. He hadn't been allowed to use his powers his whole life, so much like somebody who starts lifting weights and exercising, we see that directly after he has made massive gains in strength as well as in speed and durability. During Batman vs. Superman, Superman is able to drag a freighter ship through the snow by chains, and honestly, he doesn't even really look like he's trying to do it. However, the most significant feat during the film is shown in a newspaper clipping that Superman was actually able to move a tectonic plate in order to prevent an earthquake. Keep in mind that the average tectonic plate weighs approximately 24 quintillion tons. However, after being resurrected is when Superman truly gets batshit crazy strong. After being resurrected by the Mother Box, Superman is amped to an unknown degree. We know he's significantly more powerful now. So to get an idea of this, let's first take a look at his fight with Doomsday. He and Wonder Woman were faring about the same against Doomsday. after he was hit by a nuclear missile, but after Superman is resurrected, he's able to take on the entire Justice League, including Wonder Woman, who, based on feats, would have been considered his equal before being resurrected. Not only that, but he was also able to demolish Steppenwolf without even breaking a sweat. And just to put that into perspective, it took the combined powers of Zeus, Ares, Artemis, and a Green Lantern just to force Steppenwolf to retreat, and on his way out, he killed that Green Lantern. During the Justice League film, characters like Wonder Woman and Aquaman weren't able to do much of anything to Steppenwolf, but Superman shows up and puts him down while basically laughing about it and tossing out one-liners. Additionally, his chest hair had grown so strong at this point that not even the film could handle his mustache, and it had to be removed for the final cut as our eyes would not have been able to handle its true glory. Alright, that's enough body hair jokes for one video, I think. So it's pretty obvious that this Superman is very strong and his strength coincides with his durability. As a child, he doesn't really have any durability feats, but as an adult, he tanks the full force of a beer can without a scratch. We all know Superman is bulletproof, but his durability extends far beyond bullets. During his battles in Metropolis, he's thrown through skyscrapers, hit with satellites, and even crashes into the Earth from space, but none of that puts a scratch on him. He tanks punches from other Kryptonians that were bred to be the strongest of their race, and he gets up every single time. While attempting to destroy the World Engine, a massive terraforming machine used to turn Earth into Krypton, Superman withstands the gravitational force of the World Engine while weakened by Krypton's atmosphere. As he continues to spend time on Earth, he becomes even more durable. During his fight with Batman, Batman tries an attack on the senses and fires a blast from his sound cannons, clocking it at over 300 decibels. For a standard human, 85 decibels is known as the action level, where hearing protection is really required. And you may be thinking to yourself, if 85 decibels is unsafe for a human, 300 decibels should be nothing for Superman, but it's actually quite the opposite. Superman has enhanced hearing that we'll be getting into later, but the long and short is that 300 decibels will be much, much, much louder than it would be for us. And while this attack does stagger Superman, he's able to recover and destroy the cannons almost instantly. Just to put this into perspective, Superman listening to a 300 decibel sound cannon is even more painful than the average person being forced to listen to one Imagine Dragons song. Superman also doesn't need to breathe to survive and is fine in the depths of the ocean or even in the vacuum of space. Additionally, he doesn't need any protection while in the Arctic or even in space, which is much, much colder, likely because he has a built-in fur coat in the form of that sexy chest hair. Yes, I got another one! No, I'm seriously done this time. No more jokes. I'm done. After deciding to become best bros with Batman, Superman goes toe-to-toe with Doomsday, an abomination created by... Alright, fine. I guess we can call him Lex Luthor, but that's not Lex Luthor. While Superman was able to contain Doomsday for the most part, he still gets ragdolled multiple times by base Doomsday. And what I mean by first base Doomsday is that this is the weakest version of the character. Not like they kissed, but they didn't go much farther after that. Just base 1. Level 1 Doomsday. Doomsday has the ability to take large amounts of energy and evolve to become stronger over time. So in base, he was stronger than Superman, but Superman was able to take punches and force Doomsday into space. It's at this point that the president decides to nuke Superman and Doomsday. Not a great plan, but the nuke does its job on Doomsday, and by that I mean absolutely nothing. But it does do a significant amount of damage to the Man of Steel. But after a few seconds in the sun, he recovers completely and goes back to battle. Now keep in mind that when Superman was fighting Doomsday and he took a nuke to the face, he was still weakened by the effects of Batman's kryptonite gas, something he had never experienced ever. As we all know, Superman does eventually die during the events of Dawn of Justice, but again, he died while weakened by kryptonite, and he still managed to kill Doomsday, who was much stronger than Superman at this point, and honestly, he didn't even really die. At the end of the film, we see dirt rise from his coffin, signaling that Superman would recover and return, which obviously he does. Now, I feel like I need to explain this part because a lot of people didn't understand this, but In the Death of Superman comic book, just like in the film, Superman doesn't actually die. He's just beaten to a point and injured so badly that his body basically shuts down to within a nanometer of life. Eventually, over a very long point of time, he would have recovered. The Mother Box was just used to kickstart that process. Now, easily the most underrated aspect of DCEU Superman is his speed. This dude is off the charts when it comes to speed feats. During his iconic first flight, he travels from the Fortress of Solitude, which is located in Ellesmere Island, to Africa in about 9 seconds. And for those people wondering, we did the calculation. We are assuming that this is near Mount Kilimanjaro based off what we see during the scene. That would mean Superman traveled about 6,600 miles in around 9 seconds, which clocks him in at Mach 3,739. And that is literally the first time he flies ever. Ever. First time. This would make him far above hypersonic, and even the novelization of Man of Steel confirms that Zod is at least hypersonic. Later, we see him fly from Metropolis to the Indian Ocean, as well as from Metropolis to Mexico, and both of these feats he accomplishes in seconds. As far as combat reaction speed, the guidebook explicitly states that they are equal. It's really interesting here that it uses the words lightning speed, because we're going to discuss how fast he is relative to the Flash, and lightning and the Flash are very, very, very common themes. We are talking approaching the speed of light. After Superman is resurrected, he becomes even faster, as we mentioned before. We know this because Wonder Woman was able to match his combat speed during Batman vs. Superman, but in Justice League, she and pretty much every other character with hypersonic combat speed, like Aquaman and Steppenwolf, seem to be standing still to Superman. This is what we would call sub-relativistic reaction times and combat speed, and possibly even higher, putting Superman's new travel speed and reaction speed about 5% the speed of light. Now let's get into his Kryptonian abilities that are a little bit more unique. First of these, of course, is flight. This just in, Superman can fly. In addition to flying, all of Superman's senses are enhanced to far above humans. His sight is so good that he can see through nearly anything. As a child, his senses began to overwhelm him, but his mother teaches him how to hone these senses, and as an adult, he's able to turn his X-ray vision on and off at will. However, one downside to that is that Superman can't see through lead, which is why Lex Luthor was able to successfully bomb the US Capitol building. As for his enhanced hearing, we'd already touched on this a little bit, but I'd like to go into it a bit more. Superman can hear up to 500,000 hertz. The average human can hear 20,000 hertz. Dogs can hear 35,000 hertz. Bats can hear up to 110,000 hertz. This means that the second best hearing in the DCEU is probably Batman, but... wait, is Batman a bat? Am I still recording? As a child, he was able to hear his classmates whispering through a janitor's closet door, which, to be honest, isn't that impressive, but the things that they were saying about him were so mean. Maybe his true strength is that he was able to rebound in the first place. Stop bullying each other, guys. When he becomes a fully fledged superhero, he's able to hear subtle sounds over very vast distances, and he can even pinpoint distinct sounds through a lot of background noise. For example, during the fight with Doomsday, Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman were all attempting to stop Doomsday, and there are explosions going off and people getting smashed through concrete, and I'm pretty sure there were a bunch of people blasting Metallica in the background, and despite all of this, Superman was able to hear Lois drowning. Similarly, during that fight with Steppenwolf, Superman was able to hear that the Flash needed help saving the civilians, and he rushed to his aid. The range of Superman's hearing is also really insane. During Batman vs. Superman, the Man of Steel was all the way in Smallville, Kansas, was able to hear Lois Lane falling through every single sound within his range, pinpoint her location, and save her before she hit the ground. But how far is that range? Well, we don't know the location of Smallville, Kansas, so for this example, we'll use the location of Chase, Kansas, which is like the stand-in for the city in the TV show of Smallville. As for Metropolis, we're going to use Jersey City as the best estimate. The distance between these two cities is approximately 1,400 miles, meaning that if Superman is in Smallville, he can hear basically everything happening in the continental United States. Up next is one of Superman's most iconic abilities, his heat vision. In the special features of Batman vs. Superman, we find out that his heat vision reaches temperatures of 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit or 5,500 degrees Celsius. Superman can use his heat vision to carve tunnels straight through glaciers, burn through Kryptonian armor, and even create devastating blasts. But he can also be precise enough to cauterize wounds. In the guidebook, it's stated that his heat vision is a beam of light, not a beam of energy, which would make his blasts a light speed attack. And finally, we have his frost breath, an ability that most people forgot about, including Warner Brothers, as Superman has only used it once during the Justice League battle with Steppenwolf, and 0 times at his other appearances before that. The new god was mid-axe swing, and Superman was able to literally freeze him in place. Keep in mind that Steppenwolf is one of the most physically powerful beings in the DCEU. And that is about it for powers and abilities, but who would I be without giving you Superman's weaknesses? The light of a red sun will immediately start to weaken Superman back down to his base strength of a normal human being / Kryptonian. This transition, though, isn't immediate. It's pretty close. Superman is, after all, a giant rechargeable battery that runs on yellow sunlight. The more he exerts himself without yellow sunlight present, the weaker he becomes, and if he doesn't have any to replace it with, he basically deteriorates into a regular person. The second weakness Superman has is, of course, gambling. Yes, Superman bets on the ponies and he's lost thousands of dollars, which is why he lives in a really shitty apartment, but no, I'm kidding. Of course, his second biggest weakness is kryptonite. Everybody knows this. The radioactive remnants of his dying homeworld is able to strip Superman of his abilities, and with enough exposure to either, Superman slowly loses his abilities, but even weakened, Superman is still able to keep up with armored Batman, who is far above a peak human. Now, that is quite a lot of information about Superman, and I hope that you learned a lot. As you can tell, Superman is clearly a boss in the DCEU. He is certainly one of the strongest beings we've ever seen in films. And that is about it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. I know it was a little bit longer than our normal videos like this, but let's face it, Superman is a boss, and he has a tremendous amount of feats, and we wanted to really dive into all of them. This has been Nick with Key Issues. Remember to like and subscribe if you're new around here. And, of course, remember the motto, comics over everything.